In this video, you'll watch real aviation incidents caught on camera. Hard landings, failed takeoffs, mid-air emergencies, and moments where everything turns into a plane crash in seconds. This isn't a movie, and there's no second attempt. Each clip shows how fast small errors, sudden failures, or bad conditions can change the outcome. Viewer discretion is advised. Stay focused, watch closely, and let's break down what happened, one incident at a time. On April 15, 2017, at about 4:35 local time, a Sikorsky S-92A helicopter operated by CHC Helicopter was on final approach to the helideck of Savon, Brazil, the platform known as SS-86, off Brazil in the Santos Basin. During the approach, the tail rotor struck a nearby antenna or mast, and the helicopter made a hard landing with damage to the tail section. The crew maintained control and completed an emergency landing on the deck. There were no reported injuries among the 21 people on board. The investigation described the cause as a collision with an obstacle during the landing approach. On Wednesday, June 28, 2023, Delta Airlines Flight 1092, a Boeing 717, was arriving at Charlotte Douglas International Airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, on a scheduled passenger flight from Atlanta, Georgia. During the descent, the crew selected the landing gear down at about 2,000 feet above the ground and got an unsafe indication for the nose gear. They performed a go-around, worked the checklists, and tried both normal and manual gear extension, but the nose gear still would not lock down. Air traffic control later confirmed the nose wheel was not visible, and after another go-around, the crew briefed for a nose gear-up landing. The airplane touched down on the main gear, then the nose was gently lowered onto the runway, and the aircraft came to a stop on the runway. Airport rescue crews responded immediately, and once it was confirmed safe, passengers evacuated through the forward doors using the emergency slides. No injuries were reported among the 104 people on board. Investigators determined the cause was a fatigue fracture of the nose landing gear upper lock link, which prevented the nose gear from extending and locking. A contributing factor was maintenance non-compliance with the applicable Boeing service bulletin. On Friday, May 14, 2021, a Robinson R-44 Raven II helicopter crashed into the Val Dam near Val Marina in Gauteng Province, South Africa. The helicopter was approaching a private landing area at Burgundy Bay and flew low over calm, glassy water before turning toward the landing spot. It then descended rapidly, struck the water, and sank. The pilot and one passenger were fatally injured. The report states the most likely cause was a loss of height perception over mirror-like water, leading to an unintended descent and water impact. On Wednesday, February 10, 2010, a Record TV news helicopter, a Gyrocopter AS-350, crashed in São Paulo, Brazil, on the grounds of the São Paulo Jockey Club near the marginal Pinheiros Expressway during the morning rush hour. The aircraft was filming traffic and a police response when the pilot radioed that he had a serious problem, including a suspected tail rotor control issue. Witness video showed the helicopter spinning as it descended and hit the ground in a grassy area away from the highway. The pilot later died from his injuries, and the cameraman on board was seriously injured. No one on the ground was hurt. The reported cause was a loss of control following a tail rotor malfunction. On Friday, January 10, 2025, Delta Airlines Flight 2668, a Boeing 757-300, began its takeoff roll from runway 9 left at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, bound for Minneapolis-St. Paul. At about 100 knots, the captain noticed a directional control problem and rejected the takeoff. After the aircraft stopped, cockpit alerts indicated a failure of the number 2 right side engine. Airport personnel also reported visible flames from that engine, and the captain ordered an emergency evacuation. Passengers exited using the emergency slides. 1 passenger suffered a serious injury, and 7 passengers had minor injuries. There were no crew injuries reported.
Yeah, I've never had anything like this.
Yeah, same, but I tried every week. I'm like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, one of the engines totally started on fire.
Yeah, it...
On July 15, 2021, a U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter taking part in a formation training flight over Bucharest, Romania, reported technical difficulties and began losing altitude over Aviatorilor Boulevard. Traffic police quickly cleared the Charles de Gaulle Square roundabout, and the helicopter made an emergency landing on the roadway, knocking down 2 streetlight poles and stopping traffic. No one on board and no one on the ground was injured, though nearby vehicles were reported damaged. Officials said the forced landing was triggered by a technical malfunction that led to the sudden loss of altitude, and an investigation was opened while the aircraft was recovered from the scene. A Boeing 767 Crosswind landing is a high workload maneuver because the wind is constantly trying to push the airplane off the centerline. On final approach, the crew often flies in a crab, pointing the nose slightly into the wind to cancel drift. Just before touchdown, they transition to runway alignment, using rudder to straighten the nose and aileron into the wind to keep the upwind wing from lifting. In stronger crosswinds, they may hold a brief side slip, touching down first on the upwind main gear, then the downwind gear, and only then lowering the nose wheel. The goal is simple: no sideways drift at contact, no runway excursion, and no wingtip strike risk. If the approach becomes unstable, the safe call is an immediate go-around. On March 30, 2007, a privately operated autogyro crashed at Converse Airport in the United States during a low-altitude turn after takeoff. The video description notes the pilot was extremely fortunate because fuel did not ignite, and the recording stops immediately after impact because nearby personnel rushed to help. The pilot later posted a statement taking full responsibility, saying he turned downwind too low and too slow, got behind the power curve, and realized the mistake only when it was too late. He also explained he applied full power farther down the runway to avoid loose gravel on the airfield surface, but said the safer decision would have been to continue straight ahead, build airspeed and altitude, and only then turn downwind. The pilot reported he walked away uninjured, and he emphasized the aircraft itself was not to blame.
First time I saw a crash. I'm glad he's not hurt.
In the mid-1990s, a privately owned gyrocopter crashed at Erskine Park, New South Wales, Australia, during informal practice on a strip with no instructor on site. According to the person who filmed the footage, the group was doing fast ground runs to build skill, but one pilot went too far and lifted off before he was ready to fly. Moments later, at very low speed and low altitude, the aircraft became difficult to control, the rotor system struck the ground, and the gyrocopter rolled into an accident sequence. The pilot was not injured. He went to the hospital for a precautionary checkup, then returned, disassembled the machine, and took it home. The cause described by the uploader was premature takeoff during training runs, combined with limited directional control at slow speed due to a very basic tail design and weak airflow over the tail surfaces. On June 15, 2015, a gyroplane suffered a real engine power loss at about 1,500 feet above ground level, and the pilot immediately set up for an off-airport landing in a short farm field, choosing a spot that would also make recovery easier. According to the pilot's own notes, the engine backfired and the decision was made to land as soon as possible. An attempt to add power on downwind ended with the engine shutting down completely. For safety, the magnetos were switched off before touchdown. On very short final, the pilot used the slip to clear an electric fence, then touched down normally. The rotor kept spinning in autorotation, which is why the aircraft could still be flown and landed safely without thrust. The reported cause was a carburetor failure leading to engine power loss. On Thursday, December 25, 2014, in Cascavel, in the state of Ceará, Brazil, singer and pilot Waldonis was performing a demonstration flight in a gyrocopter when the engine reportedly stopped producing power. Video and local reporting describe him attempting to restart the engine, with a brief backfire, before it quit again. With no reliable thrust, he committed to a controlled emergency landing, relying on rotor autorotation to keep the aircraft flyable and touched down safely in an open area. He was reported to be uninjured. The documented cause in the available coverage is an in-flight engine power loss and engine stoppage during the demonstration. A deeper mechanical root cause was not published in those reports. On January 3, 2022, a Cessna 120 lost control during a go-around at Cable Airport in Upland, California. While landing behind two helicopters, the pilot initiated a go-around when a helicopter in slow hover taxi crossed near the runway. Seconds later, the airplane encountered the helicopter's downwash, rolled abruptly right, and impacted just off the runway, causing substantial damage and a minor injury. The NTSB cited wake turbulence during the go-around as the cause. On April 8, 2003, At about 3:45 p.m. local time, a Gyrocopter prototype gyrocraft was conducting a local research and development flight from Olney Municipal Airport near Olney, Texas. The aircraft returned to land on runway 35 in visual conditions. During the landing setup, the pilot's attention was pulled toward a twin-engine airplane taxiing on the runway, and he forgot to extend the retractable landing gear. A chase ground crew call warned that the gear was still up. The pilot then applied full power to try to go around, but the gyrocraft contacted the runway and continued into a wheels-up landing, sustaining substantial damage. Both occupants, the pilot and the flight test engineer, were not injured. The National Transportation Safety Board listed the cause as the pilot's failure to extend the landing gear, with diverted attention as a contributing factor.
49, 54, 57, 59, 60.
Landing gear.
Gear up, gear up, gear up, gear up!
On Sunday, August 12, 2018, a Mi-8 helicopter in Tajikistan's Pamirs Mountains was ferrying a climbing group near the Fortambek Glacier after their ascent of Ismoil Simoni Peak. As the aircraft approached the base camp area at roughly 4,500 meters elevation, it descended in very poor weather, then struck the glacier and broke apart in a violent crash landing. Officials later reported 18 people on board and confirmed 5 fatalities, 2 crew members and 3 Russian mountaineers, while the remaining passengers survived with injuries and were later evacuated for medical treatment. One of the survivors was Pavel Shubin, a rescuer from Buryatia, who captured the approach and impact on video. That footage was later uploaded online on September 12, 2018, which is why many reposts show that publication date even though the accident happened a month earlier. Shubin and other survivors described very low flight near the terrain and bad visibility immediately before the impact, and the Tajik Emergency Service cited strong wind and poor visibility as the preliminary cause of the crash landing. On October 28, 2016, American Airlines Flight 383, a Boeing 767-300ER, was departing Chicago O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, Illinois, for Miami, Florida, when the right engine suffered an uncontained failure during the takeoff ground roll on runway 28 right. The crew rejected the takeoff and brought the airplane to a stop on the runway as a fire developed on the right side. Cabin crew initiated an emergency evacuation, and passengers exited using multiple doors and slides. The widely shared terminal video shows the evacuation sequence from inside the airport. Everyone on board survived, but the evacuation resulted in 1 serious injury and multiple minor injuries, and the airplane sustained substantial damage from the fire. The National Transportation Safety Board determined the probable cause was the failure and rupture of the right engine's high-pressure turbine stage 2 disc, which severed the main engine fuel feed line and breached the right-wing fuel tank, releasing fuel and fueling the fire while the airplane was still at high speed on the runway. The disc failure was traced to low cycle fatigue cracking that initiated at an internal subsurface manufacturing anomaly that was most likely not detectable with the production and in-service inspection methods in place at the time. The NTSB also identified contributing factors to the serious injury during the evacuation, including a delay in shutting down the left engine and a flight attendant deviation from company procedures that led passengers to evacuate from the left overwing exit, while the left engine was still operating, with additional communication and checklist issues cited in the report.
Engine 12 to tower, this is, we're at, 28 on fire. Are we clear to cross?
Rescue affirmative. You can cross the runway, rescue. Any runway you want to cross, you can cross, rescue vehicles.
Alright, 12 cross, roger.
657 to 6510 on fire ground. We're down under a quarter tank, so we got a backup behind us.
Oh my god. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my freaking god. Oh my god. Oh.
On November 11, 2023, a Lancer LX-7 turboprop was landing at Aero Country Airport in McKinney, Texas, when the airplane touched down far beyond the intended point and could not stop on the remaining runway. It departed the runway surface, went through the airport perimeter fence, and collided with an automobile on a nearby public roadway, causing substantial damage to the aircraft. The pilot and passenger were not injured, and the driver of the car sustained a minor injury. The National Transportation Safety Board listed the probable cause as the pilot's failure to attain the proper touchdown point during landing, which led to the runway excursion and the collision.